When my girlfriend first mentioned going on a vacation with her friends, I didn't think much of it. It sounded like a typical trip, just some time for her to relax with people she knew. But then she dropped in the detail that threw me off. All the friends she'd be going with were guys. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach almost immediately. And I knew it wasn't something I could brush off easily. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who's insecure or controlling. The one who tells his girlfriend she can't go somewhere because it makes him uncomfortable. But the truth is, it did make me uncomfortable. And I couldn't just ignore that. We'd been together for almost a year by that point. Things between us had been good. For the most part, we had our disagreements like any couple. But nothing that ever seemed like a deal breaker. She was fun, easygoing, and we had a great connection, at least. I thought we did, but this vacation brought up feelings I hadn't fully acknowledged before. Feelings of doubt, trust, and the boundaries we had, or maybe hadn't, set in our relationship. When I asked more about the trip, she mentioned it so casually, like it was no big deal. She said they were just a group of friends, guys she had known for years. She even said they were like brothers to her. I wanted to trust her. And in a way, I did. But then she added something that caught me completely off guard. One of the guys going on the trip was someone she used to hook up with. Back before she and I met. That was the moment I felt everything shift. Suddenly, this wasn't just about her going on vacation with friends. It was about her going on vacation with a guy she had history with. I tried to play it cool at first. I didn't want to come across as jealous or insecure. But deep down, I felt like I was standing on shaky ground. I told her how I felt. That it made me uncomfortable for her to go on this trip. Especially knowing her history with one of the guys. I thought maybe she'd understand. Maybe she'd reconsider. Or at the very least, we could have a conversation about it and figure out a compromise. But instead, she brushed off my concerns. She told me I had nothing to worry about, that they were just friends, and that I was overreacting. I remember sitting there, trying to process what she had just said. It wasn't that I didn't trust her, it was more that I didn't trust the situation. A group of friends on vacation, with alcohol involved, in some far-off place where anything could happen, it didn't sit right with me. And the fact that she used to be involved with one of these guys only made it worse. But no matter how I tried to explain my side, she wasn't hearing it. She was set on going. And that was that. In that moment, I made a decision. I knew that if she went on that trip, I wouldn't be able to continue our relationship. It wasn't something I said out loud, but in my mind, the line had been drawn. I wasn't going to give her an ultimatum. I didn't want to be the kind of guy who threatens to end things just to get his way. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that her decision to go, knowing how I felt about it, spoke volumes about where we stood. She left for the vacation a week later. I stayed quiet about my plans. Even though I had already decided that we were done. I just needed to get my things from her place before breaking up with her. I didn't want to do it over the phone or through a text message. And I didn't want to make a scene before she left. So I waited. I figured I'd handle it when she came back. While she was gone, I thought about everything, how our relationship had changed. How I had been feeling more and more distant from her. And how this trip was the tipping point. I kept thinking about how she hadn't even introduced me to these friends. Despite me asking multiple times, every time I brought it up, she made excuses. And the fact that I only found out about her past with one of them by accident, that was another red flag. It wasn't like she had been upfront about it. I found an old picture of them kissing while she was showing me some travel photos. She laughed it off at the time, saying it was ancient history. But something about it never sat right with me. It's not that I was constantly doubting her. I had been okay with their friendship, until now. This trip, though, felt like too much. It was a breaking point for me. I didn't know if she had cheated on me during the vacation. And honestly, at that point, I didn't care. The problem was that I couldn't shake the doubt. And I was tired of feeling like I was second-guessing everything. I didn't want to be in a relationship where I had to question things all the time. When she came back from the trip, I picked her up from the airport like nothing had changed. We made small talk on the drive back, and I dropped her off at her place. I had my stuff packed up and ready to go. As we stood by the door, I handed her the key to her apartment and told her it was over. She didn't see it coming, at least not in that moment. She was shocked, and then the tears started. She knew it was because of the vacation. She kept telling me that nothing had happened, that I was overreacting, and that I should have told her I was going to break up with her if she went. She said if she had known, she never would have gone. But that was the thing. I didn't want to threaten her or give her an ultimatum. I didn't want to be the guy who says, "Do this or we're done." That's not how I wanted our relationship to be. I told her that I had made my feelings clear before she left. And she still chose to go. To me, that was all the answer I needed. She made her choice, and now I was making mine. We went back and forth for a while. But in the end, nothing changed. I left, and that was that. She tried reaching out a few times afterward, but I didn't see the point in dragging things out. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to go back on it. I was done with the uncertainty, the doubt, and the feeling that I wasn't being heard. Maybe some people would say I was wrong for not warning her. Maybe I should have told her straight up that I was going to end things if she went on that trip. But at the end of the day, I think relationships should be built on mutual understanding and respect. If she couldn't see how much that trip bothered me, then maybe we weren't as compatible as I thought we were. And if I had to spell it out for her, then maybe it was already too late. After I broke up with my girlfriend that day, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. On one hand, I had finally made a decision that had been eating away at me for weeks. And there was some comfort in the finality of it. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I should have handled it differently. Maybe I should have given her a warning. As she said, instead of silently deciding to end things without giving her a real chance to change my mind. For the first few days after the breakup, I tried to focus on the relief I felt, the clarity that had come from walking away from a situation that no longer felt right. I spent time with my friends, threw myself into work, and tried to keep busy. But it didn't take long for the loneliness to creep in. My apartment felt quieter without her presence. The small things we used to share, the texts throughout the day, the laughter over stupid jokes, all of it was gone, and I missed it more than I expected. In the days that followed, I started to second-guess myself. The question of whether I had done the right thing gnawed at me. I replayed our conversations over and over in my mind. Especially the one we had when she came back from her vacation. She had cried, telling me she didn't realize the vacation would lead to a breakup. She had insisted that nothing happened, that the guys on the trip were just friends, and she wouldn't have gone if she had known it would mean losing me. Part of me wondered if I had been too harsh. Was it fair to end the relationship without giving her a clear ultimatum? Was it fair to expect her to know how deeply the trip bothered me if I hadn't spelled it out in black and white? But then, another part of me argued that I had been clear enough. I had told her how uncomfortable it made me, and she had chosen to go anyway. Wasn't that enough? Wasn't that her choice to prioritize the vacation over my feelings? As time went on, the doubts only grew louder. I found myself scrolling through old photos of us, reminiscing about the good times we had shared. We had built something together over the past year, and for the most part, it had been good. She had made me laugh in ways that no one else had. She had been there for me through tough times, offering support when I needed it most. And now, all of that was gone because of one trip, a trip that I hadn't been able to handle. But it wasn't just the vacation. It was everything that led up to it. The fact that she never introduced me to these friends. The fact that she hadn't been upfront about her past with one of them. It all made me question how much trust we really had in our relationship. I had tried to convince myself that I was okay with it. But clearly, I wasn't. The vacation had been the final straw. The breaking point I didn't see coming until it was too late. A few weeks after the breakup, I got a text from her. It wasn't long, just a simple message saying she missed me and wished we could talk. I stared at my phone for what felt like hours, debating whether to respond. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if there was something left to salvage. But another part of me knew that going back would only reopen old wounds. I didn't want to start the cycle of doubt all over again. I didn't respond. Days turned into weeks, and eventually, the initial shock of the breakup started to fade. But the doubts never completely went away. I still questioned myself, still wondered if I had been too quick to end things. My friends tried to reassure me that I had done the right thing, that I had stood up for myself and my boundaries. But their words felt hollow. I couldn't escape the nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, I had made a mistake. Then, about 2 months after the breakup, I ran into one of her friends at a mutual acquaintance's party. We exchanged pleasantries, and for a while, it was just small talk. But eventually, the conversation shifted to my ex. Her friend mentioned that she had been really hurt by the breakup, that she had never meant to upset me with the vacation, and that she was still trying to make sense of why things had ended the way they did. I listened, unsure of what to say. Hearing that she was still hurting made the guilt resurface all over again. Maybe I should have explained myself better. Maybe I should have given her a chance to make things right. But then, as her friend continued to talk, I realized something. I had been focusing so much on whether I had made the right decision. But I hadn't really considered whether we were right for each other in the first place. The truth was, the vacation wasn't the real issue. It was just a symptom of something deeper. I had been uncomfortable with her friendships, not because of the people themselves, but because I didn't feel secure in the relationship. I didn't trust that she was being completely honest with me, and that lack of trust had been there long before the vacation ever came up. The vacation had just brought all of those insecurities to the surface. After that conversation, I started to see things more clearly. The breakup wasn't just about her decision to go on the trip. It was about the fact that our relationship had cracks in it that we hadn't addressed. I had ignored the red flags, tried to convince myself that everything was fine, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. We weren't on the same page when it came to boundaries, trust, and communication, and no amount of talking about the vacation would have fixed that. In the end, I realized that breaking up had been the right decision, even if it hadn't felt that way at first. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't without regret, but it was what I needed to do. I needed to walk away from a relationship that wasn't giving me the security and trust I needed. I needed to stop doubting myself and start trusting my instincts. A few months later, I met someone new. This time, I made sure to communicate openly from the start, to set clear boundaries and build trust in a way I hadn't before. It wasn't easy, relationships never are, but I had learned from my past mistakes. I had learned that it's okay to stand up for what makes you uncomfortable. And it's okay to walk away when you know something isn't right.